So to see something go from a German idea like that to a couple hundred people here sitting in a room talking about one thing is pretty amazing, and it's validated my belief in a couple of things. One, Laurier turns out great grads. Is Ginny here? She appreciate that comment. And we've got a lot of great students, and every day I get more coming through my classes and through the door, looking to get involved, as Karen said, in these kinds of issues, and recognizing that these kinds of issues are increasingly more central to just business strategy, good business strategy, because not from a reputational risk mitigation point of view, but integratively to say, if these are the issues that are really going to present us with some problems and opportunities over the next couple of decades, and there are lots of those, then we better be integrating this into our strategy models and about what kind of businesses we get into. I heard a stat the other day saying there are more, now in Silicon Valley, there are more algae startups than there are IT startups. I'm serious about it. Algae is a biofuel, growing algae to burn as a biofuel. There's more of those starting up now in Silicon Valley than IT. So that is just, a little piece of data to say that strategically there's a lot of opportunities out there. The second thing that it validated for me is that conversation is really the engine of change. And you're all here because of 1,000 conversations that have gone on. We're going to have 1,000 more for the next year, and that's how we're going to evolve and change. And that's really the mechanism. And really if Sustainable Waterloo so far has done anything, and really this is just the launch, is that it's got that conversation going in Waterloo. And I'll say more about that just as I wrap. So that's a little backgrounder, and probably more than I intended to say on that, but a little sort of where we came from. My job tonight, though, is to provide a bit of context. We actually have 3 people going to come up and speak. Paul Rack is going to tell the VeriForm story. Mike is going to be up here to tell the Sustainable Waterloo story and where we're going from here. And my job then, they said to me, can you provide some context? Am I on slide? If I just click these, am I okay? Will my slides pop up, Joanna? She's looking at me like, I don't know, try it and see. So there we go. Okay. Now, I can't wander, can I, Emil? Can you come and rejig me up? Okay. I can juggle. Has anybody got any oranges? Or that's all? He's got to turn it on. Okay. Karen said in the introduction that I teach sustainability and strategy at Waterloo, and I'm firmly of the belief that that sounds live, that you can't, sustainability isn't something you teach, it's something you got to kind of mess around in and try to figure out. And some colleagues and I, Elizabeth Kurtz from University of Guelph, David Wheeler from Dalhousie, he's the dean at Dalhousie, we did some research and went into a bunch of companies and talked about sustainability and what does that mean. And wherever you go, people try to converge on it, or often try to say, we just need to come up with a solid definition and some metrics, and that's all true. You do have to come up with metrics, because what gets measured gets managed and all that, but the definitional part we kind of disagreed with. We said what's actually neat about sustainability is that it's a big, messy concept. It's a contestable concept, like art or democracy, right? It's a big, messy thing that you got to actually get inside it and start playing with it and figure out what do you mean, what do I mean? And so we did some research that kind of helps clarify, or at least give a framework to talk about some of that stuff. So to say that I teach sustainability just means that I get classes together and we present facts and concepts and strategic frameworks, and we mess around. And I got some of my students here, and we sort of did a lot of messing around this year, right? And they're still doing some more independent studies and things. And so that's what I brought tonight. I'm just going to show a couple of the frameworks. I went through our slide decks from class. I pulled a few things out, and I'm going to just run through a couple of things here, just as kind of provocations, I think, for us to think about as we listen to the next pieces, and as you, especially if some of you are here thinking, geez, I hear about this, there's opportunities here that Mike's going to talk about around pledging partner and that sort of thing. I hope some of these provocations help you decide where you come down on the issue, whether you should get involved. So, in terms of putting this in context, I'm going to put it in 3 kinds of context. 1, a spatial context. 2 is a temporal context in time. And then 3rd, the context of the global carbon challenge. And I think probably most people here are pretty well versed in that, so I'll just do that at a clip. Has anybody seen this picture before? That's my hometown. Earth. Anybody here from Earth tonight? if I had asked that question, I asked it jokingly now, of course we've all seen a picture of Earth, but if I asked that question 41 years ago, nobody would have said, yes, I've seen a picture of Earth from space, because we took the first one late December, early January 1968, 69. Apollo 8 rounded the moon, took the picture Earthrise, became kind of an emblem of the environmental movement, because what it did was to say, holy cow, we're just on this rock floating in space. It's this pale blue dot, I think Carl Sagan called it. And what's most striking, it was striking to the astronauts, and every astronaut that's gone up since and actually seen it live, is how thin that layer of the biosphere is around that. Because, for millennia, people grew up, looked up at the sky, and looked at this endless sky over our heads. You get out and take a picture of Earth. Isaac Asimov used to like to say that Earth is if Earth was a basketball and you painted a coat of varnish on that basketball, that would be the biosphere. That's how thick it is. Okay, so from a spatial, put this in spatial context, that's kind of what we're messing with here, right? It's that thin and that fragile. Okay, so hold that thought for a second. Here's, I think, a pretty good depiction of the evolution of humanity within that biosphere. That's me on the left, and we work our way across. There's a kind of frightening symmetry to that picture, right, from the one end to the other. And you see the second person in has no tools. The third one's got a knife. Fourth has a spear. The fifth has a rake, kind of symbolizing agriculture. And then industry with a jackhammer, and then the computer. So we've created all this mess and these problems, and now we're trying to solve it at the keyboard, right? So that's kind of how we tend to think of the evolution of humanity. It's how, it's progress, right? So there's your progress. And if you want to read about progress traps, read Ronald Wright's Massey Lectures, Brief History of Progress, and or any Thomas Homer Dixon book. You can see some of the problems we're getting into. Thing is, though, when we think about that as the evolution of the planet. Well, not really. When you put it on a geological time scale, let's put this in context. So how is human time placed in the context of geologic time? So we're going to take the scientific geologic perspective here for a second. So just to put this in a metaphorical perspective, if from the Big Bang forward we said we're going to watch a movie of Earth on a film, then it was going to be a year long, the movie. So you'd start watching it January 1 at 12:01. You'd finish the next New Year. So if we played that movie, it took a full year to watch, and we said one frame of the film is 1 year. It's frames as they go by on a film. I know it's a little different with digital video now, but remember the old film strip? 1 year of real time. Normally 24 frames a second to fit. It takes 24 seconds, but to fit it in, we have to speed the film up 6 times. So that in 1 second of that year, it would be 146 years. Okay? Just to kind of put it in some kind of context there. So half a second would equal 1 lifetime. And we tend to think in terms of lifetimes, right? With, my life, my mother's life, and her mother's life, and that sort of thing. So we think in lifetimes, but in this case, a lifetime is half a second. So if we sat there and watched it, we'd see 8,752 years each minute. And then in an hour, we'd see 500,000 years. And in 1 day, we'd watch 12 million years go by. Okay, so you think of human history, and put it up against that, that's the experiment we're doing here. So that's kind of the metaphor. You kind of got a hold of that? All right, so if we started watching the movie January 1st, it would take to about March break before you started seeing single-cell organisms forming on the planet. It would take another 2 billion years, so this is not a car chase movie. This is pretty slow stuff, right? A little more Ingmar Bergman than Steven Spielberg, right? So Labor Day, you would see more complex life forms, eukaryotes, which are membraned organisms with a nucleus. So still not very highly evolved, right? It would take to Labor Day to get that. November, you'd start to see multicellular organisms. December 13th, the dinosaurs appear. So a lot actually happened between the November and the December 13th here. By about December 15th, first mammals. 5 hours to midnight, the genus Homo, and the dinosaurs, by the way, they came in December 13th. They were gone by Boxing Day. So they lasted 13 days. 5 hours to midnight, the early humans. 11 minutes to midnight, modern humans. 1 minute to midnight would be what we now call civilization, the last 10,000 years.